So thank you for your time this morning, Laura. With us today are members of the Lawn Sentry team, Prabhu, Sean, Ryan, and Ro. I'm Forrest, and I'll spend the first few minutes kind of walking you through our proposal, the problem space, and the solution, and then I'll open it up, and we can have a conversation about any questions you might have. The other folks will weigh in. Okay. All right, so quick overview. Lawn Sentry is attempting to solve what we consider to be an enormous problem, and that's both for individual households and society as a whole. The issue is really encapsulated in the first line on the screen. Half the water we use outdoors is just lost due to wind, evaporation, and runoff caused by inefficient irrigation. So until I started this project, I really had personally no idea as to the magnitude of that problem. But clearly it's really significant. So Lawn Sentry has a solution that monitors grass and soil moisture to optimize outdoor water use. And over time, our solution will reduce individual household water costs, and that's great. But at scale, we think Lawn Sentry can really make a dent in that 50%, and that's sort of the ultimate goal. All right, so digging a little bit deeper into the problem space, aside from that big 50% number, if water management were easier for households, we'd probably waste a lot less of it. So it's very difficult for us to measure the amount of water used outdoors, and it's even harder to get down to the individual sprinkler or zone, right? So the proof of this is that on average, that monthly household water bill has sort of just steadily increased over about the last 10 years. A lot of homes have rain sensors that should shut off sprinkler systems during a downpour and such, and that would certainly fix part of the problem. But when we talk to sort of potential customers and industry experts, the feedback we got was that most of these sensors are just extremely unreliable and inaccurate. So even when they work, though, they're not measuring moisture on the ground. And so it's really then impossible to describe the value of cost savings even when those moisture sensors and cutoffs do work. How much water was saved, how much money was saved, that ends up being kind of a mystery. So the more we spoke with experts and customers, the more we found some common themes. Using less water is a real aspirational goal. But there are a variety of factors like price, maintenance, reliability, difficulty of installation. All those things kind of get in the way. So it's a real problem, and the market's looking for a good, elegant solution. And that's kind of where we come in. So when we thought about how to build Lawn Sentry correctly, we thought number one about accuracy, right? So Lawn Sentry is the most accurate way for households to manage water use. Other solutions track weather conditions, but Lawn Sentry monitors moisture on the ground. And by doing that, it's able to also help visualize savings. And that's both in terms of water used and real money spent on that water bill. So we want to help households understand savings that they realize through our solution. And we do that through this mobile app that keeps track of how often a watering cycle is cut short and then translates that into this easy to understand readout. Our solution can be used as a standalone or part of a bigger home automation system, and we think that's going to be a really big deal in the years to come. So the app's part of it, but that's really just the front end. This is a very technical solution. Here's a little bit more about how that underlying technology works. We put an array of sensors in the lawn soil to detect moisture in each zone, and that enables granular control over water distribution and management. There's a head unit that manages water shutoff, and soil moisture detection is done in real time on the premises. So there's a degree of accuracy, again, that is just not achievable using weather forecast data like many of our competitors might. And then all of that information is sent to that mobile app so users understand what's going on. That's going to be key. So Lawn Sentry is interoperable with other sprinkler control systems, and that means that customers won't have to rip anything out in order to use the product. Lastly, we have intellectual property at risk here, so our technology is novel and can be protected by patents. Now, we think that every home with sprinklers could benefit from a Lawn Sentry system, but we're going to start by focusing on the segment that we think will benefit the most, new home builds in the western U.S. And that's a region where the home starts are generally strong and where drought conditions are prevalent, so water use is top of mind. To size that market, we looked at housing starts in that target region, and then we followed the existing growth trend of about 6% annually, got to about 350,000 new homes to be built in 2019, and then 419,000 by 2022. We then assumed that about 8% of those homes would have home automation systems, and that figure was provided by the Consumer Technology Association. In our opinion, it's a pretty conservative estimate. So anyway, that 8% really represents the slice of folks we think will be most interested in Lawn Sentry. And then finally, we applied the average price of a competitive moisture system to end up with the figures on the screen. So if we take all of that into account, you can see the size and growth of the market in blue. And again, that's a conservative estimate. We think we can get to 5% in year 1 and achieve 15% share in year 3. That's about 1.2 million annually. All right, so that's a decent market and it's going to get bigger fast. So what about the competition? We think there are 2 types of competitors, sensor providers like Rainbird and Hunter, and more complex IoT type solutions like Rachio and Grow. Historically, competitive factors in this space are price and ease of install and brand awareness. That's really indicative of a mature, low margin space, but remember that none of these solutions are meeting emerging customer needs. So based on industry trends and evolving expectations, we think that new key factors include, again, accuracy, reliability, and the ability to visualize that value. Lawn Sentry's positioned to meet those needs and compete on new factors, right? We're at a disadvantage when it comes to price, awareness, and ease of install, but we have a plan to address those deficiencies because we have a great marketing and sales strategy. Our product and positioning line up with those competitive advantages, again, accuracy and visualization of value, and we can minimize our disadvantages. We're going to use value-based pricing that considers the lifetime value of the product over several years, and we expect that to be inclusive of a number of sensors, 4 on average, plus the price of the control unit. One of our disadvantages is installation and the difficulty of it potentially. So we offer professional installation for another $100, $99 really, and that still means that the price of an average Lawn Sentry system is less than Rachio and still kind of competitive with Grow. All right, so we're not at a price disadvantage really. And finally, what about the sales component? Now, we could go directly after consumers, but we think that's a tough market for a new company to crack. So instead, we'll initially target home builders and HOAs. This focus makes it easier for Lawn Sentry to gain market share by establishing strong B2B relationships with just a few companies. And bear in mind that if we're successful, the price of the system will typically be rolled into the cost of a new home or HOA membership. All right, so our management team's focus will be sales growth in the near term, and we're likely to be cash flow negative, we think, for the first 2 to 3 years as we work through product development and stand up our sales and ops team. We're going to learn a lot in those first couple of years, and if our cost estimates and penetration projections hold true, we think cash flow will break even in about year 4. These are early projections. We'll get more detailed in the next couple of weeks. All right, so again, we're early stage, but we've already completed our first milestone, that kind of initial concept design, and we're hard at work on our second milestone, a functional prototype. We're looking for $500,000 in seed funding from an investor to help us move from prototype to initial production. And we expect to do another raise of $2 million for multiple investors in order to hit full-scale production in year 2. Funds are going to be compensated with equity, but once those initial orders roll in, we'll use debt to further finance the business. All right, so we think we've got a great product and a great sales and marketing strategy. And more importantly, we think that we're the right people to pull this off. We have strong backgrounds in engineering and software development, and we're very committed to water conservation. We do have gaps. None of us really has a strong B2B sales background or experience specifically in the home automation space. We'll hire early on in order to fill those gaps. Okay, so in summary, if there's anything that you take away from this, Laura, I hope you remember that half the water we use outdoors is simply lost, and that's an enormous problem. Lawn Sentry is going to be the most accurate way to manage that outdoor water use and the best way to understand the benefits of good water management. It's a key component of next generation smart homes. We're serious about water conservation, and our management team is well-rounded and committed. If we're successful in this endeavor, we can exit via sale to a competitor like Raccio or to a company that really wants to own the home automation space. And that's really promising because several large cable companies like Comcast and Charter are making strong pushes into that area. Finally, we need your help to take the next step and really cut into that 50% number. 500,000 gets us from prototype to production. Thanks for your time. And with that, I will open it up to questions.
So you really got my attention in the last 30 seconds. I had a light bulb go on, and I don't know if you've already thought of this, but I really like this plan, and I absolutely see the need, I see the problem. But I don't know that much about this, but it seems like there are a lot of other potential substitutes.
Okay.
You know, and I'm not claiming that this is a good plan and you should, continue. But I am saying I see some real possibility with this last mention of, partnering with a top home automation firm like Comcast. I mean, why wouldn't you just develop this plan as an entrepreneurial project, or with the goal of, instead of being a standalone company that you would sell later, why not develop a partnership there now, and rely on them for funding. I mean, I think that's realistic, so instead of pitching this whole thing to investors, you're pitching to Comcast, or you're pitching to whatever other company you think is a solid fit. Because I think that plan, that could be really interesting. If your research really does support that companies like that are looking for a way to, reach this particular part of the market. So just, something to think about. It's not a traditional approach, but it sounds, just on its surface, fairly realistic. And I've in the past, we've worked on plans that do just that. So your exit strategy, or your strategy, doesn't always have to be, I'm going to get funding, I'm going to start this on my own, and so on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. That's great feedback. As it happens, I work for Charter Communications. And so I know to some extent whereof I speak with regard to the IoT aspect of it, and partnering just partnering initially with the cable company. Thanks for bringing it up. I really hadn't considered that. I know they're serious about it, but I don't know how their partnerships in that space tend to work. So we could definitely dig into that. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, and the other alternative is to shift and turn this into an entrepreneurial plan, but I don't know, you might be pretty far down the path, and I don't know if that shift would be more work than that makes sense at this stage. But, that's another option.
Okay.
Reshape this whole plan to be an entrepreneurial project for a Charter. So, yeah, that sounds like a lot of work. I had a couple of questions here. I like how you roll the cost into the HOA. I think that is much more palatable to people, even though nobody likes HOAs. If you're buying them in a community and you know that they care about protecting resources, that it's required, that would be really appealing for some people. I'm wondering, you may have said this, but while I'm taking notes, I may have missed some crucial information here. Is your growth, your projected growth, in line with trends, growth in other industries? Did you say it was in line with new home starts, or was it in line with purchases of irrigation systems or something like that?
Yeah, great question. So the industry that we're in really is, and it's tough to pin this solution to a specific industry. The industry increases by about 2 to 3% a year. But the growth in home starts is about in the region that we're targeting is about 6% a year. So we think that home starts is a bigger driver than overall industry revenue because most of our industry is based on farm and agriculture and not necessarily selling to consumers. That's a smaller sliver. So we felt that 6% was more appropriate.
Okay. And so those are home starts in a particular area that you're targeting, or are those home starts in as a national average?
The home start area that we're targeting is the Western U.S. We did extrapolate the national average into that region because I couldn't get figures for that region specifically.
Okay. Okay. Let's see, what else do I have? Those are really the only questions I have for you. Do you have questions for me?
Yeah, sort of big picture, I guess what worked for you? What was good versus what just fell flat?
Well, number one for us, I think you're an excellent communicator. If you were reading, I didn't get that sense, and I think that's something we want to avoid in these presentations, and it's very easy to do that when we're online because I can't tell if you're reading from a script unless I hear it. And it's pretty evident in a lot of presenters, and you seem to you seem to feel very comfortable with the information. You're presenting it in a conversational style, so I really like the way you did that. The problem is in the final presentation, every team member is going to need to participate. You all have to have an equal role, but each of you will need to speak. And so it'll be really good for you to all practice and know that it's fine to have notes, but it would be best if you all know your part and you're comfortable speaking without reading quite so much. And again, I didn't detect that at all in your presentation, but I just want to let you know that that's something we're going to try and work on for the final.
Sure. Laura, that's really great feedback, and with that in mind, I really owe it, I think, to the rest of the team to stop talking now and open it up so that they can maybe answer your question, right? What questions do the rest of the team have for Laura?
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Prabhu.
Yeah, just with your initial thoughts, Laura, to spin up to work for a different enterprise and sell our products, how it will improve our goal actually in the sense like if we create the company and sell the products for Charter or Comcast, I'd like to understand how it will, because we can create this company, evolve it into a bigger company, and we can spin it off to the stockholder, and we could get more profit out of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, all of this is speculative, but the way you would approach it is instead of building out your plan with the intent to ask for investment from, venture capital firm or whoever, angels, you're pitching to Comcast because you want to be their strategic partner. So it's not an ownership. Maybe it would include an ownership interest, but you're basically your ask is, do you want to partner with us on this? So maybe it's a strategic partnership for the start, and then it would turn into a sale or something later on. But that way, you're able to use their customer base in your projections.
Okay.
You probably scale a lot faster because you can leverage their resources, their marketing. You'd still need to include those costs, but I keep saying Comcast, but I think you mentioned Charter first, so maybe you have access to some data that would be helpful. It's just a possibility. If you run the numbers and you don't think realistically that this can be profitable the way you're pitching it, then that's just something to look at.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Prabhu. Anybody else have any questions for Laura?
I've got a little bit more feedback for you if you'd like that.
Sure.
Okay. So I think you include a lot of great information on your slides. It's very thorough. For the presentation, though, I think it's important to notice the difference between a presentation and your business plan. These slides do not have to mirror your plan. The intent for these is to get excitement from an investor and to present a story, a compelling story about what you have to offer and where this could go. So you can feel free to shape this however you like. I think the most compelling way to shape the slides, aside from telling a good story, is to eliminate most, if not all, of the text. To really focus on your images. For example, you have really nice slides for the solution and for the technology. The images on those slides alone would be compelling, especially if you know the part, right? So you don't need all of those bullet points next to those great, look at a process map or a chart of some kind. You know, put the chart up there and then walk us through it or use it as a reference in your discussion. It's much easier for an audience to get what you're talking about if we're not so distracted by trying to read all of the content too.
Got it. So a little bit less telling and a little bit more showing.
Exactly. Do you want to go back to one of those slides that we mentioned, either the solution or the tech? And I can give you an example of how you might do that. Okay, so this one's fine. Opportunity or technology. This one works great too. So instead of including the text there, just include the chart and talk about what you want to talk about. I get what I need from that chart at a glance, so I don't need to scrutinize it too closely. And you know, you can talk about what you want to talk about there. You could still say what's in the bullet points, but it's just not necessary to present it all there.
Got it.
Yeah, and I like that you have an ask. I'm trying to remember if you gave me an agenda or an ask up front, but it's most effective if you start the presentation with your introduction and the problem, and then sort of bookend the presentation with, we call it, tell you what you're going to tell me, or tell me what you're going to tell me, and then tell me what you told me. But it's, you know, it's like writing a paper too. You know, there's an introduction, there's a middle, there's a conclusion. And so the key parts of those are sort of reminding your audience what I'm going to tell you, and giving all the information, then reminding them on the key parts at the end. And that usually includes the ask. You know, like what investment you're seeking or what action you're seeking, maybe a strategic partnership, that sort of thing.
Got it. So on that sort of first overview slide, we cover the problem kind of in our solution, but at no point did we say, and I need your help up front, right? And that really needs to be said first, and then we go through the plan and then drive it home at the end. Yeah, I follow you.
Right. I don't want you to force it in the beginning if it doesn't feel natural, but if you can get it in toward the beginning, I think that's more helpful, because let's just say I'm really an investor. I'm wondering, you know, what are they going to ask me for the whole time? So
yeah,
if you can say, I'm looking for $1 million, that gives me a lot of context for questions as you're going through the presentation. I don't think that they do that on Shark Tank, but you know, I think they want the effect at the end, and I think it's better in the real world if we know.
Yeah, no, I think that's great feedback, and that's an easy enough fix.
I think this is about all I have for you. I mean, generally speaking, I think you're on the right track and you're doing well, and it'll only get better from here.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Laura. I appreciate your time this morning. We all appreciate your input, I'm sure. And enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Thanks. Thanks, everyone.